Okay. Okay, for the audience, you feel free to switch on your videos for more interactive session. Okay. All right. So I think we can, without further ado, I actually can pass the floor to you, Mr. Azlan.
All right. Thank you very much.
I will allow the sharing first. Dr. Nur Hayati also there. How are you, Dr. Nur Hayati?
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Insania Farid, and thank you very much for recording. I will have to give it to our Dr. Edwin later for evaluation.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the session too, and your student.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see my slides? Hello, you guys can see my slides, yeah? Okay, hang on, let me just get my... All right. Set the screen just a moment. Okay, quite a number this morning. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Azlan, and hang on, slides going crazy. All right, thank you for joining, and thank you for having me this morning. There is the urge to go quickly a bit because I have about 30 odd slides to go through, so that's quite a lot. For this particular session, as opposed to last week, we'll leave the questions towards the end, and there is every opportunity, although, for you to write in the chat box if you wish to record your question beforehand. Yeah. So going straight to the title of my little talk this morning, it is about a bridge to industry, and I think you'll find it that it's at the end of it, it relates directly to you. And unless I'm mistaken, most of you are actually engineering students, am I right?
Yes, they're engineering students.
So I think what you'll see shortly is very, very relevant to where you are, not just as a student, but also as a person. Okay, so today is about how do you communicate good design. So when I talk about design, it's not just industrial product design, it's engineering design as well, yeah? And so this is a quote from the Ford chief designer, Jay Mays. You know, it says that the secret about simplicity is that it's really hard to do. Now, everyone talks about simplicity nowadays, right? Simple, pure, good design. But, you know, it's actually harder than we think to achieve that philosophy. I'm going to give you a few examples here from there. Apple, all of us know Apple Incorporate, right? Huge company, market capital in excess of 1 trillion now. In fact, they're so rich, they can actually run a country if they wanted to, you know, amazing amount of effort to use design in making profit for the company. All of you know this silhouette, I think. You know, whether you're into cars or not, I think when you see this silhouette, you know it's a Porsche 911. To me, it's one of the most recognizable sports cars or silhouette in the world. Yeah? And why is that? Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit on that as we go along, yeah? But I'm sure you can relate. Dyson. A lot of us see this product whenever we go to Harvey Norman or those electrical shops. I think it's the vacuum cleaner or Hoover that a lot of people desire, but find it quite difficult to want to purchase since it's very expensive. Yeah? Hence my term there, always imitated but never equal. Yeah. A lot of people want to be, or manufacturers want to be like Dyson, but till today, I think they still want to be the best, if not the best, the pioneer. So, all right, so you've seen how products, electrical products, cars, and now the home industry have actually benefited from good engineering, innovation, and product design in bridging engineering to design and vice versa, giving the best products to the market. So when you look back, right, all this actually started in the last 3 centuries. You know, started with the Industrial Revolution. Started with the loom, actually. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side of the screen, how that developed machinery into steam engines, and after that, fossil fuel engines and stuff, and it created the production line. So this Industrial Revolution is analog at its best. It worked for a while, but times have changed. Nowadays, it's all about personalization, isn't it? The need to deliver as quickly as possible the desires of the consumers. Yeah, so that, I hope you're starting to see the link now. Yeah, and today, personalization, whether it's in your car or your computer, and especially your mobile phone, which we can't really live without nowadays, a smartphone is so critical to the success factor. So it's about meeting the consumer demands in this thing called the digital consumerism. It's getting what you want almost instantly. It can be an app, it can be software, it can be even physical things. All of us shop in Shopee or Lazada, right? And it's about, you know, getting as fast as possible. That all those 3 items of cues leads you to the exploration of the creative impulse. When I say creative, it's not necessarily just designers. I'm relating to engineers as well. How fast, how personalized you can make things for your customers. Because whatever you're doing, whether it's electrical, civil, structural, or whatever, in the end, it's about meeting the consumer needs. It is not engineering for yourself. It is a business, whether you like it or not. You know, it's about generating revenue and sales. Yeah. So how creative can you be to bridge that? So what is good design? What is good engineering design? What is good product design? Now, I'd like to link that to Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, you guys know him, right? Very famous architect. So a beautiful car or product is not necessarily a good piece of design. It is merely style. And that's actually not what we want to be doing. You don't want to just do styling. You want to design as an engineer. You want to design as a designer. So we have to be able to put form and function together in one union, together. I think that's where the world is going to. It's no longer just about form follow function or function follow form. These are some examples of, you can argue whether it's good or bad. Yeah? The Satria Neo that you see on the top left-hand corner there. Very stylish car, locally made in collaboration with Lotus in the UK, but not very practical. The Mercedes G-Wagon at the bottom of the screen there, in the center of the screen. Very practical. Seats 7 people. You can even trash it as hard as you want and it will not break. Pure Germanic technology. But not really beautiful, is it? And then you have the other designs, the product like the one by Philip Stark, the Juicy Salif, and even shoes like the ones by, what's the name of the designer, but the one on the right there, you know, 6 inches of heels. Is it really practical? It looks very good though. Very sexy, yeah? So design is actually very subjective. And usually you'll notice that, especially after working later on, it's usually about what the customer says, what the press or the news says, and figures. The boss always likes to know, hey, how much you making the sale? How profitable are we with that design that you just did? So when you look back at all these products, do they all answer positively all these questions? You have your objective, but do they answer the questions? Yeah. Very subjective indeed. Now, I'm going to try to narrow this for you. So usually the press is about how to separate design from the brand. They always question that. And sales is about, does good design actually sell? You know, and usually it's related to market, brand, reliability, sales support, and ultimately price. You can design the best solution in the world, but if it is too expensive, no one's going to buy it. Yeah. I like to remind my designers the same thing. You can have the best idea, but if you can't get it off the sketchbook for the boss to approve, it's not going to work. Then you have failed. Okay. Right, let's move on. So how do you separate design from brand image? That's an example. Eh? So this is one example I want to share with you, where innovative design led to poor sales. Now, this is a car by Renault. It's called the Avantime. It is, imagine the Toyota Estima with 2 doors and seats only 4. So you have all this room inside the vehicle, right? Super luxurious, really futuristic design, but it didn't sell. It couldn't sell. People couldn't appreciate the value of the design, in spite of it being so unique. So ultimately, good design, right, has to be judged on general concept and how you execute the details. So it's much deeper than just what you see. The appreciation of good design. Again, I stress on the fact that good engineering and good product design, same thing. How do you come up with the concept? How do you execute the concept? So design execution in particular is not really in the details. They are in the design of the product. Yeah. So you have to look at things holistically. So good design must show differentiation, innovation in style, function, or the technology that's being offered. It would be really good to have relevance to your heritage and your brand or your past. And ultimately, these days, you'll notice that there is a need to have a family or consistency in your presentation. Okay, allow me to explain this. Differentiation. You look at the cars that's in front of you right now. You have the BMW X6 over at the top, the Range Rover Evoque, and an Alfa Romeo in red. They all have their own design differentiator. Either it's in the proportion, the design cues. Don't know if you can see my mouse. Hang on. Okay. Design cues like this, or the face like this, yeah, or the side proportions, the windows like this. All are unique to each other. So that creates differentiation. You want to be recognized as a person, just like you and me. Each one of us are unique. And then that's the style. You want it to be known as, for example, of a car that is a sedan or a sports car. Is it low? Is it high? Is it wide? Does it have a menacing face? Or does it have an executive family face? What is the style? What is the method? Next is the functions that you offer. Is it innovative enough, such as having these doors that open this way and that way to give maximum entry opportunity? These are really unique and very rare, for example, in Malaysia. Or a very small car that give you maximum space inside with the shortest front and rear overhang. Yeah? So functionality is key. Remember, form follow function, function follow form, a union together. Technology. You must offer something that is relevant today. For example, nowadays, everyone demands LED or laser lights. Whenever if you were to offer a normal halogen light, it is considered last year, yesterday's past. Yeah? Everyone's talking about hybrid technology, using batteries, yeah? And even monocoque frames to make the car lighter. Okay? These are all key items that you can offer. And then I touched just now on brand, right? On heritage, right? You look at the growth of the Porsche, for example, over the years, from the past to where they are today. You see how they have evolved slowly over the years, carry the good cues. And the same goes for the Range Rover. They have a consistency, right? That's important nowadays because people want to connect to something more than just a simple product in front of you. They want to know what is the story behind it. And that's where you touch on the consistency I was saying. This is the Volkswagen Golf, yeah, from the first generation all the way to today. Yeah. Consistency is important for brand building. So to execute great design, you must have these items. Some are more applicable to automotive design, yeah, like this, for example, stumps. But basically, the rest applies to all products that engineers and designers do. You must have good proportions. You must have great highlights. You must have good materials, yeah? Ergonomics, very critical nowadays. And on my personal part, perceived quality and haptic control. Yeah, that's the next phase of great design, which people are still exploring nowadays. So very quickly through them, proportions is about how the car sits. Now, if you look at the Porsche in front of you here and the Audi at the bottom, they have great setup on the road, right? It just looks good. But why does it look good? That is where proportion comes in. Now, proportion is about relationship between elements like the wheels to the body. Yeah? We call this the golden ratio, relationship between wheel to the top of the car. Okay? So when you talk about product design, it's the same thing. You look at the Dyson vacuum cleaner, right? There is a certain proportion about it that makes it look good. Not just, this doesn't just apply to cars. Then you talk about stands. Now, if you look at this Reliant Robin with the triangular stance, does it look good? Does it look stable to you? Compared to this Proton, a mass, yeah? Look at how it sits on the road. I think you can tell immediately this one has a better stance. Highlights. This could be quite foreign to a lot of people. What do you mean by highlights, right? You see this bright color that you all across the car. See how it moves across the car? This creates the definition of quality, believe it or not. Good highlights, whether it's in your, if you look at a watch, right? If you have an Apple Watch or one of the new smartwatches, there is so much that you can detect and see on the highlights of the product that you use. So the good ones have very good highlights. And that is related to surfaces and line work. Everything you do in engineering or design is related to surface and line work. Because you have to package it into something. And to make customers understand that there is a sense of quality into your work, it has to have these beautiful highlights and lines that track all all around the car. Look at the flow. Everything you do, every single screw component that you do has to run properly. Yeah. Look at how the lines run all consistently across the car. The right corners, here, and all that. Then once you got all that, you must be able to engage people, right? So the right use of materials that you offer is critical. Soft touches, for example, here are the main contact point when you drive the car. And where else? The steering wheel, right? Where you always touch. Or in the case of product, the casing. You notice that certain phone casings feel better than others? That's where the choice of materials is important. That bridges your idea as an engineer or a designer to the customer. And that connects to the feel. How does it feel like? Does it feel good when you move the components, the structure? Or does it feel loose? Human factors is critical in engineering, as it is in design. You must be able to come up with good design, right? And make people understand. You must be able to position humanity, the human percentile, this keyword. I'm sure you've done your homework on this, right? Percentile, appropriately to your design. Not just for cars, for products as well. A hand that touches your design in America compared to another hand in Asia can be very different. Yeah? And can make people like or hate your design. Next is gaps and flushness. This is obviously an example of cars that have beautiful gaps here, right? And flushness. Those are all signs of quality. Yeah. So it's not just the surfaces that we talked about just now, right? The surfaces, but also in how they join together. In engineering, that is very important. Fit and finish. Look at the quality of an iPhone, for example. You can feel how solid it is, isn't it? That is related to feel, which is also related to gaps and flushness. So what is good design again? I ask you the same question again. So you have so much information just now, right? About how it relates to brand, what are the qualities of good design, how is the mental thinking behind good design. In the end, it can only be a strategy, but you must always look at the result. You can talk until the cows come home. You can be very theoretical about things, or you can be also very applied. Yeah, you can have an academic talk about the deepest philosophies, theories, and methods of achieving good design. And you can have an industry player who has 20 over years of experience talking about applied solutions. But at the end of the day, it's the result. Yeah. It is not just about your CAD data, your beautiful renderings, or your technical drawing. It's definitely not just emotional thinking. Do not misinterpret the term design as just something very emotional, because I get it all the time. Yeah? Those are just the basics. Yeah? But more importantly is you have to recognize the things that you do, the plan that you need to execute it, and the marketing behind it. It has to be logical and strategic in your work. You may think that as an engineer, how can I be strategic? Actually, you can. Every step of the way you can. How do you think? So, if you recall just now, as I come towards the end of my presentation, there is the need for heritage. Remember those words? I talked about heritage in the beginning, right? Allow me to share with you this chart that I got from Professor Young from Korea. it says here, the average car company, or you can say the average product, it doesn't have to be a car company because it applies to all, resides here, whereby they follow the design phase, they reach the good design phase, and they have an identity, more or less. Yeah. But very few achieve this, the native design phase. This is where you relate to heritage, to country, to people, to values. So this is the pinnacle of what every product or car company wants to be. This is where people want you. They have to have you. That is the final phase. Yeah? I give you a very simple example. When you open an Apple product packaging, what is one of the first things you see inside? I guarantee you the words say designed by Apple in California. You will never see made in China, even though the product is made by Foxconn in China. That is the simplest analogy of native design phase. And how important it is. If a company like Apple recognizes the fact that they need to enter native design phase from years and years ago, imagine a growing company like PROTON or any other company in our local industries. The unfortunate thing is probably 80 or 90% of the industries in Malaysia specifically, because I know we have some probably foreign audience here, but in Malaysia specifically, we're just struggling to gain the good design phase. You haven't really achieved even identity design phase. So it's still a long way to go. Yeah? But these are examples where you can share with people, or at least keep in your mind as you grow to be competent, applied educators in academic or in the industry. This knowledge will allow you to bridge academic to industry and vice versa, and to move any brand, actually, any discipline to the next level, which is native design phase. So you can say, as a summary, is actually good design is about culture, to be able to bridge identity and have differentiation at the same time, and moving to a new paradigm. The best marketing tool is actually the best product. It's not about being present in advertising, spending millions on advertising, etc. Yeah? It's about the best product. So get to know yourself first, clearly, and define your culture to get to the native phase. Another, I think, probably the final example I want to give is in the PROTON X50, is the SUV we just launched recently. About 25,000 orders, and no one has actually even touched the car in Malaysia. It was just launched officially with the price a few days ago. So the best product sells on its own. No need any advertising. But if you recall at the start of my presentation, I said, this relates to you, right? So you as an individual, you are actually a product. So if you get to know yourself actually clearly, and you define where you are and where you're going culturally, you can best market yourself than anyone else in this world. And this is where you will be. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've been able to understand. Good design is actually you. All right, thank you very much. Quite fast today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Azlan. That is a great sharing. Maybe we can open up a Q&A session from the floor, from the audience. You guys have any question?
Yes, actually, I would really like to engage more of the audience this morning. If you could put your questions into the chat box and we can then try to address them one at a time. I can go back in my slides if you need to see them again. Or you can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be about the slides or the topic today. It can be something that's related to design, products, and stuff like that.
But maybe I have a question just to kickstart the Q&A session. Mr. Azlan, can you share with us, I mean, being a person at your position, can you share with us the evolution of a proton car design since 1986 until now? I think if you talk about the identity, you talk about the heritage and so on, right? The evolution of design. Can you share with us maybe some of your experience in brief? The evolution of proton design. Of course, we start by imitating others, right? Until now, also we're still imitating. I think from Bayu model. Just now you talk about this X50 and so on. Can you share with us some of the evolutions that you actually have based on your experience with proton cars?
All right, no problem. As I'm talking, feel free to write more questions. You got one question by Justin there. I'll attend to you shortly. The rest, by all means, ask away. Yeah. Okay, so the evolution of Proton's design identity is a question I get quite a lot, and I presented actually numerous times to try to clarify to the general public and our customers how we began, where we are today, and where we're going. So I could actually break it into three phases, basically. First was the Japanese phase with Mitsubishi.
Yes.
And then you have the Lotus phase with the British, and now the Geely phase, China. Yeah. So that's as broad as I can go in terms of segregating the period now. Okay. Now, in the beginning, it was about learning. It was about understanding what is car design. You know, we were the only developing nation in the world that set up that industry at that time in the early 80s, right? So obviously we had to learn. So we had the collaboration with Mitsubishi. And the design team spent time in Japan, and the Japanese also came to Malaysia to make people learn and understand about exactly what we talk about today. You know, about culture and how identity can play a role into design, and what is good design, etc., etc. How do you get about designing, etc. And yes, you're right. At the time, it was about rebadging. Mitsubishi cars changed the badge and try to have as little differentiation as possible. About having the most differentiation as possible with the least possible time. Why? Because time to market is important. Okay. So we went through that phase, but after a while, we noticed that we needed to move. If you look at this. We needed to move from just following the design phases. We needed to move to good design and eventually have our own identity. That happened a lot during the Lotus years. Then we decided to build our own car. We decided to develop our own identity. and develop our own engine. Yeah? So engineering and design was accelerated, the initiatives. And that's when we had the Waja, we had the Neo, Savvy, etc., etc. Some performing better than others, obviously. Yeah, so that's the second phase where we started to develop our own identity. And we moved into native design. That was very important. Why? Because we're known as a national car. We carry that baggage of being a national car. So you have to look into native design. Go forward to the last phase, where we are today with GD. This is actually a recovery period more than anything else. It's about recovering Proton back to its glory days and having enough revenue to sustain the company. So how to do that? Get the new products to market as fast as possible and improve the current products. That's why you have the Boyue or the X70 so fast within less than 2 years already in our market after the collaboration. And now the X50, the Binyue, which we got out in, I think, about 1 year, just about 1 year, very, very fast. Why? Because we need to sell to generate income to support design and engineering. So this third phase is more about sustainability and recovery. It's not really looking into futuristic, fantastic, contemporary designs, but really about let's survive first, and then we'll go back. Yeah, so that in a nutshell is actually how things have progressed over the years. Yeah? So the importance of design has gone through different cycles. It's like a bell chart. You could say that we have gone back to where we were in the 1980s. In a way, if you think about it, isn't it? You kind of like going back to rebadging. So it's like a cycle. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I think we have question from the chat. We can address
Yes.
them. Okay.
Okay, the first one is by Justin Chu. Could I ask what design or what elements was the biggest learning process for you and your team? To me, I think it's about satisfying the voice of the customers. It's about not thinking of being a designer or an engineer, actually. It's about, taking a step back and actually thinking, hey, does the customer want this or not? Will this work for our customers or not? That is really one of the hardest part, because normally, I learned through the hard way myself, yeah? When you graduate, or especially when you study, right, it's all about you. It may be difficult for you to grasp this concept, that statement now, because you're still studying. But once you go into the workforce, either as an academic or in the applied industry, you may want to take a step back and realize the fact it's not about you. Whatever you're doing is actually about the customers, the people who are going to use your engineering, the people who are going to use your design. So are you actually listening to what they want, or are you doing it for yourself? Now, a lot of the problem is actually people, unfortunately, is doing it for themselves. I want the screw like this. Why? Because I like it that way. It will save my project certain amount of cost or money. It'll bring it to market much faster than that early idea. So when you start to be in that rut, in that situation, that is very detrimental to the end result, to the customer. And usually it will end up not selling, not being successful. That's through my experience. That's one of the biggest learning process that I think myself even and all of you need to learn very quickly. It is not about you, it is about the voice of the customers. We're not fine artists. Remember that. We are designers and engineers and members of the academic. We're not fine artists, whereby we do a lot of things. Now, fine artists, right, with all due credits to them, and I have a lot of friends in the fine arts, a lot of it is about them. It's about their emotions and how they show the world and addressing issues and concerns. Yeah. Designers and engineers are not like that. Okay, so I hope that enlightens you, Justin. The second one is by Ali Mujahid. Can you give us an example of how you found a good trade-off between aesthetics, performance, and cost in your industry? What are the considerations and steps to proceed? Well, yeah, I tell you, I go through this every single day. Every single day is a fight to balance aesthetics, engineering, cost, and a whole multitude of things. It's a wonder how I wake up in the morning. But yeah, what good example can I give you that you can be aware of? Okay. Okay. Very easy example, I think that you can relate and everyone can relate. Okay, we look at a car, right? What are the 4 contact points most important? Yeah, in terms of safety. Yeah, it would be the wheels. Yeah, you got 4 wheels on a car, 2 front, 2 rear, right? And the first thing you may think about is that the wheel is just a necessity. Without the wheels, the car will be disproportionate. It cannot move, right? So you must have the wheels. Okay. For designers, the wheels add proportion. Remember I was talking about proportion earlier? Proportions to the car. The wheels add beauty to the car. So that's where the aesthetic parts come in, right? Then the engineers will say, oh, the wheels are too big, because designers always love big wheels. So allow me to show a picture to explain that. All right, let's use this picture. Okay. When you talk about proportions, I explained how the wheels relate to the rest of the car, especially the top part of the car here. Yeah. So big wheels make a car more stable and more proportionate, but engineers don't normally like big wheels because they create drag, more traction to the ground, hence lower fuel efficiency. That means you burn more fuel because the wheels touch the ground. There's so much contact surface point. And the procurement people, the cost people, also don't like big wheels because they say it costs too much money. Because the designers usually, to achieve this kind of design, you need to use special material or special finishing. You can't just use cheap metal to achieve it. Yeah. So here you have a design concern, you have an engineering concern, and you have the cost concern. So who will win? It's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult. But at the end of the day, we always go back to the voice of the customers. Like I said just now, earlier, right? What does the customer want in this car? If you're talking about an affordable car like the Proton Saga or the Perodua Myvi, those are very cost-conscious consumers. So you balance. It's all about balance, in this thing. So if you know the product is aimed for the cost competitive or cost conscious consumers, again, go back to the voice of the customers, then you cannot have big wheels. You cannot spend too much because they will not appreciate it. Maybe a small number, yes. But by and large, your target market that's going to make you the sale is not going to appreciate it because they just want a practical car to get from A to B, a balance. Okay. So for design specifically, or even engineering, you can't always have your way all the time. You notice that not even half of your ideas will go and be accepted all the time. But that's fine. That's fine. That is part of the job. As an engineer or a designer, you have to accept that fact that you can't always have your way 100% of the time. If you want your way 100% of the time, you need to be a fine artist, more or less. Okay, Ali, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other question from others?
Or
Feel free to ask.
yeah, it doesn't have to be a question. It can be a comment maybe on your end or suggestion. Yeah.
Anyone?
You can always speak as well. You don't really need to write in the group chat. You can speak directly via Zoom. That's fine as well.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in the point that you actually pointed out just now, talking about the identity of the design in terms of engineering. Also, they have now studying about identity, especially for example, noise and vibration. They start to study the psychoacoustics behind the sound, how Ferrari sounds like Ferrari, for example. So that is also a part of identity. Maybe can you share with us some more about the identity behind our national car design from now until maybe in the future? What do you have in the pipeline for our national car in automotive industry?
I think with any brand, first we started with the literal identity, things that you see immediately, like the logo, yeah, the front face, things that you can see and appreciate immediately. Going forward, we are looking at deeper to achieve native design phase. You need to go deeper and look into culture, yeah, different paradigms to achieve differentiation. So, what are those things? We're looking at things that will engage the human five senses: touch, smell, sight, sound, taste, even taste. And I can go into that shortly. So once you engage all these different levels of senses of the human, automatically you are addressing the customer, the voice of the customer, what they want. You notice that in the beginning I mentioned personalization, right? Everybody wants to be able to connect to your product, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or a car or even a pen. They want to be able to connect. So for Proton specifically, when you look at the car, you should feel something. When you enter the car and you sit, you should be able to feel something as well. You should be able to smell a particular smell, see things that remind you, this is a Proton. Certain cues, yeah? And even taste. So how do you taste? I'm not recommending you to lick the dashboard or the seat or the steering wheel. That's too literal. We are looking at food and beverage. Imagine looking at Proton cars or shopping for Proton cars at our dealerships. Yeah? And there is a Proton cafe there that you are able to sit, look at the car, talk with knowledgeable sales advisors, and hopefully sign the deal to buy a car. The whole ambience of being treated in a totally different level, to be served with fine coffee, in a very exclusive environment. That is the next level. It's not just about selling cars anymore or selling products anymore. It's about the total customer experience. We need to delight. I think you guys have heard about that. You need to delight the customer. It's not enough to satisfy the customer. So that's the direction that we're moving. I can't explain anymore, but I think you kind of understand where we're moving. It's not just about selling cars anymore or products. It's about moving to the next paradigm of customer experience.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Anyone?
Yeah, I think today's topic is quite a heavy, quite deep.
Yeah, for them. Because we just have lecture session for 2 hours. Possibly they are maybe tired listening to me. Okay, maybe one last question from me, just to ask from your rich experience in automotive industry, right? But while we are waiting question from the student, I just have discussion here. I mean, you have been long enough in the industry. What do you think the successful factors of these Japanese companies in monopolizing our industry, automotive industry? For example, Honda and Toyota, right? They are actually leading the market. And for the luxury cars now, I think led by the BMW or Mercedes. So from your point of view, as people have been very long in this industry, what are the factors that create this success for them?
See, the Japanese are good at taking something and making it better. That is the cornerstone of how they grew their industry. And we talk about originality or emotional style design, they can't beat the Europeans, yeah, because the industry started in Europe. Remember the industrial revolution I was talking about much earlier in this presentation? Yeah. So that's what the Japanese are just doing what they're good at. They're good at perfecting something, making it better and better, and miniaturizing it, making it smaller, more compact, very practical. Yeah. So when you are able to do that and make it extremely reliable, like Toyota, for example, or Honda, then you have already cornered a large chunk of the market. People buy these expensive vehicles and whatnot. They want to be able to keep it for a long time, trouble-free. Yeah. So in other words, you are satisfying the voice of the customers already. A large chunk of the customers, that's all they want, to get from A to B. Yeah. But we notice there is a shift now. If you notice that in Malaysia, for example, Toyota is now number 3 or number 4 in terms of the market share. Why? Why did Honda leapfrog them and now it's number 2? Yeah, why? For a non-national, that is a big issue. Why? Because we notice that the market is shifting from just owning something that's purely reliable and move you from A to B into something more of an identity, personalized. Toyota didn't offer that. That was their problem. They were so happy where they were, they didn't realize the market was moving to where Honda was. Honda took a chance. You notice that they invest a lot in design, in style. They did private jets, they do robots. It's all about brand building, isn't it? So they became attractive in this new digital consumerism. So that's where I think that it will continue in that direction. And this industry, we need to change appropriately. And there's so many other influences as well. Yeah, I think we have a question from Priya.
Yes.
When creating a design, what type of idea generation techniques do you do? Find the most effective way of generating a design that solves a problem given. Well, design specifically, we do a lot of benchmarking. And I noticed that in your list there, you don't have benchmarking. What you have in your list there, like brainstorming, the 5 whys, mind mapping, is very common, almost academic actually. But for when you want to listen to the voice of the customers and you want to know where you are in the competitors, with the competitors, you need to do benchmarking. When you benchmark, then you look at what's already out there today, and then you can project what is going to happen in the future. So the best, most successful companies will be the ones who are good in the second bit, the projection. That is the term I use is trend forecasting. That is a discipline that is still very new, I think, in Malaysia, or even generally overseas, depends on the industry that you're in. To be able to forecast 5 years ahead, how many people can do that? Yeah. So, but to achieve, to be able to be at that level, to be able to forecast, right? Like PROTON, for example, we need to forecast 5 years, 3 to 5 years ahead for all our products. The card is coming out in 2025, 24. I already know what it is. I have it in my studio already. So to be able to do that, then you need to do a little bit of what you have listed, which is that you need to do deep brainstorming. You need to be able to do SWOT analysis, yeah, and a host of other tools that you will learn when you go through or when you read a lot more. But I would say one of the most important things we do now is benchmarking. Know where you are and where you can go in relationship to your competitors. Now, closer to home, you as a student, actually you can do your own benchmarking. Whether it's in preparation for your project paper, your writing, or your assignment, you should actually put that in your homework. It helps a lot.
Okay. So I think that is a very important point. That benchmarking is not just in design of automotive; it also in other field and in other position as well. So I think that's all time that we have. Is there any? Can we taking up one more question, if there is any? In
Yeah.
the chat?
Any final queries of anything?
Final question. So we're lucky to have Mr. Azlan again next week. I'm not sure whether it's going to be with us again. So I think that that concludes the session. Again, on behalf of School of Engineering, I'd like to thank Mr. Azlan Othman for his time and sharing his rich experience in industry. So I hope that will actually benefit students here who soon to be future engineers. I always talk about from the perspective of academic and engineering professional engineers, and Mr. Azlan actually sharing in from the perspective of designers. So after all, the collaboration of all these team will produce the best product for application for people, benefit of people. So I think that's all that we have. Thank you again, Mr. Azlan. Take a good care of yourself. So hopefully we can see you again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me and making this arrangement. Yeah, always remember that whether you're in academics, or in the industry, we need to bridge the gap. That is a huge issue right now anywhere in the world, bridging gap between academia and industry. Yeah, so do your part, and I think we all can have a nice working environment ahead of us. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.